Hi, I'm your host, Rick Sessinghouse, and excited to launch Flow Golf Podcast. Each episode, we will share stories, interview experts, and share cutting-edge strategies for peak performance. Here's my co-host, Hallam Morgan, to explain more about Flow Code Golf.
Thanks, Rick. Flow Code Golf is a framework of strategies, principles, and techniques that take us from fear to the state of flow, the state of optimal performance, and the zone where we play our best golf. You can find out more about Flow Code Golf at www.flowcode.golf. And I just want to finish up by saying this podcast is as much your podcast as it is ours. So please ask questions, provide feedback, and get engaged. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
So welcome back, guys. Today, what I want to talk a bit about is focus. So we've just returned. As I'm sure many of you are aware, we've just returned from a big trip in Asia. We were in Thailand, we were in China, we were in Vietnam, and we were sharing the Flow Code methodology with junior golfers, with coaches, with a whole variety, with even some adult golf club members as well. And one of the things that really kind of showcased itself that we can help players with more is their focus. Being able to hold your focus in the present moment is absolutely a superpower. And we say at Flow Code that flow follows focus. It's really where the whole chain reaction begins. If we can learn to improve our focus on what's relevant in the present moment, then that will help us improve the thoughts that we create in our mind. And when we improve the thoughts we create in our mind, that helps us control our emotions. When we control our emotions, we improve our state. And when we improve our state, we access our best golf swing on a more consistent basis. And when we do that, we hit better golf shots and we shoot lower scores. But all of those things begin with focus. Are we holding our focus in the present moment? That's the important question. So today I wanted to share with you just a simple framework that I've shared before on these live flow boosts. But I want to reiterate it again. A simple framework that we teach to help you improve your focus every single time you hit a golf shot. So I want to take all of you out onto the golf course. Let's imagine ourselves on a par 4. Let's imagine ourselves second shot on a par 4. We've hit the ball down the fairway. We walk up to our ball. As we get to our golf ball, what should we be thinking about? In that moment, where should our focus be? Now, for us, we believe that in that moment, our focus should be on things like the lie, the wind, the yardage, maybe the elevation, maybe hazards that are around us. We should be taking in as much information as possible as soon as we get to the golf ball, collecting as much information as we possibly can, because that information is going to play a key role in helping us make a good decision. So at that point, this stage, our focus should be external. So it should be out of our mind. It should be out of us. And it should be broad, external, broad focus, because we want to be collecting as much information as possible. Our focus should be as broad as possible. So we call that stage external broad. Now, for every single one of these stages, I'm going to summarize the stage in one simple question that you can ask yourself, because I want all of you to leave this with clarity of simple questions you can ask yourself to make sure that your focus is external broad when you approach the golf ball, and that you have a simple question for every stage of these 4 stages I'm going to teach you. So first stage, we approach the ball, we collect as much information as possible, the lie, the yardage, the wind, hazards, elevation, contour of greens. We collect as much as possible. So our focus is external and it's broad. And the question we can ask ourselves in that moment is, what is the situation? What is the situation? Because when we ask ourselves that question, our brain goes to work answering it. Our brain is a question answering machine. If we prompt our mind with a question, it will automatically try and answer it for us. So if we ask ourselves, what is the situation, as we put our bag down, we're immediately going to go to work answering the question. Now, the second stage, we've collected all the information. I want you to think about, for just a moment, what would we do next? So we've collected all the information. We know what the situation is. What would we do next? Now at Flow Code, we believe that the next stage is about assessing all of your own internal factors as well as the external factors. So at this point, we need to consider what your options are. What do you have available? What shots do you have available as a golfer in order to help you navigate the challenge that you've just realized, the challenge that you've just come across? So for example, if we had 170 yards to the flag, there's multiple ways you could play that shot. You could hit a high raking draw with a 8-iron. You could hit a low fade with a 6-iron. You could hit a stock shot with a 7-iron. There are lots of different ways you can play the shot with trajectories and ball flights, but there are also lots of different clubs that you could use for that shot. So you as an individual, you have to start to consider, what shots do I even have in my locker? What skill set do I have to be able to overcome the challenge that I've just come across? And that's an important part of this step. And at this stage, we go from our focus being external and broad to now internal and broad. So we're still thinking about lots of different details. We're still considering lots of different options. Am I going to hit that high raking draw with an 8-iron? Am I going to hit that low fade chippy one with a 6-iron? Am I going to hit that stock shot with a 7-iron? You're considering lots of different options at this stage and starting to think about which ones are best for you. Because at this point, we want you to consider everything. All options are on the table. We want you to be creative. We want you to be playful. We want you to be open to every single possible outcome, every single possible solution for the challenge that you're facing. So the second question that you ask yourself is, what are my options? So we go, what is the situation? Number one. Number two is, what are my options? What are my options? And at that point, our focus is internal and it's broad. So now we've assessed the situation. We've now considered all of our options. The next step that we need to take is we need to make a decision. We need to consider all those options that we've just gone through, and we need to make the best decision for us in that moment. The best decision for us in that moment. So at that point, our focus goes from being internal and broad, and it shifts to being internal and narrow. So it remains internal. We're still thinking about things in our mind, but it now becomes narrow. We make one choice. We decide whether we're going to hit that raking 8-iron, that chippy 6-iron, or that stock 7-iron. We make a choice. We don't keep all three options in our head, debating which one we're going to go for. We choose one. We pick the one that's best for us in that moment, and we commit to it. So this is where our focus, as I mentioned, goes from being internal and broad, lots of options, we're considering everything, to now internal and narrow. We pick one. And the question we can ask ourselves at this stage is, what is the shot? What is the shot? And we can really help ourselves at this point with various different flow code techniques. We can ask ourselves, what does a good shot look like here? And we can start to visualize and imagine what that chippy 6-iron would look like. We can start to ask the question of, what does a good shot feel like here? And we can imagine what it would feel like to hit that chippy 6-iron. So we're really starting to cement the choice in our mind. We're starting to embody it. We're starting to believe in it. We're going to commit to it. That's the next point of focus. What is the shot? So we've gone through 3 phases now, 3 questions. First thing, we put the bag down. We ask, what is the situation? And we think about the lie, the wind, the yardage, external and broad. The second question we ask ourselves is, what are my options? We go internal, but we're still broad. We think about the 7-iron, the 6-iron, the 8-iron. We consider all options. Once we've done that, the next question is, what is the shot? The shot, the one shot I'm going to choose. And our focus remains internal, but it now becomes narrow on one thing. So we ask ourselves the question of, what is the shot? Now, the final stage, we've made a choice, we've got that decision, we know what the shot is. The final stage we move to then is what we call external and narrow. At this moment, our focus now goes from internal to external. So it's out of our mind, it's in the environment. Ideally, on the target. Our focus is external, but it's not broad as it was earlier. We're not thinking about the hazard and the wind and the elevation and the yardage and all these details. We're thinking about one thing. And that one thing in an ideal world is target. We're target focused, external, locked on the target, ready to execute the golf shot. And at this stage, we can ask ourselves the question of what is the target? What is the target? Now, I fully understand that can be quite challenging in golf compared to other sports. In other sports, basketball, we're looking at the hoop, we're just shooting hoops. If we think about football, as in English football, we're looking at the goal and we're shooting to the goal. If we think about almost any other sport, we're looking at the target whilst we play. In golf, we're not doing that. So we have to get really good in an ideal world of using our mind's eye. Intentionally locking into the target just a few seconds before you pull the trigger, taking that look at the target, cementing that target into your mind as you come back to the ball. So in our mind's eye, we can still see that target as we look down at the golf ball. And then we become reactive to the target. So we can really be an athlete the same way we are in basketball, in football, in tennis, we're an athlete. And we can react to the target. Because we know for a fact when we're playing basketball and we're just shooting some hoops, we're not thinking about the mechanics of our arm. We're not thinking about where's my arm, maybe I need to move. We're just looking at the hoop and we're shooting hoops. And that's what we want to do in golf. We want to get target orientated as we execute. We want our focus to be external. We want it to be narrow on the target. And then we want to react as an athlete in that moment. So the final question you ask yourself is, what is the target? So we've gone through the 4 stages there. The first one, our focus is external and broad, collecting as much information as possible. The second one, our focus goes internal and broad. We're thinking about all the possible shots that we can play. The third one, our focus remains internal, but it now becomes narrow on one thing, the choice, the decision we're going to make. And then finally, our focus goes back external into the environment, but on one thing. And that ideally is the target that we pick. So the 4 questions that we can ask ourselves to work our way through this process every single time we hit a golf shot is: number 1, what is the situation? Answer the question. Number 2, what are my options? Answer the question. Number 3, what is the shot? Answer the question. And number 4, what is the target? Answer the question, get locked in, and execute. Now, all of those questions seem quite simple, right? We probably are sat here thinking, yeah, I do pretty much all of those, right? I think about the environment, the lie, the yardage, the wind. I think about that. I think about my options. I make a decision and I lock into the target. It's not doing those things that actually is the problem for most people. The problem for most people is that we stack all of those things on top of each other. So let me give you an example. What a lot of people do is they think about the lie, they think about the yardage, they think about the wind, and they go, cool, I've got all that information. And then they think about the shot that they're going to play, and they say, I could do a 6 iron, could do a 7 iron, could do an 8 iron. Oh, but I've got to be careful with that bunker over there, and the wind's off this. Oh, okay, and yeah, there's contour of the green, there's kind of a, down the back of the green, there's a big slope. Okay, so I think I'm going to go for the 6 iron. Oh, get the 6 iron out, hold it. Not sure. Maybe I should go for a 7 iron because of that bunker in the wind. Or okay, well, I'm just going to go for the 6 iron anyway. And then they get over the ball and they go, oh, whatever you do, do not go in that bunker right, and don't hit this long with that 6 iron. I probably should have gone 7 iron, but I'm going to hit it anyway. And they go. Now, they technically did all the things I mentioned, but they accumulated them. They stacked them on top of each other. So at the moment of execution, when our focus should be external and it should be narrow, Our focus is all over the place. We're focused still on the hazards. We're focused still on the wind. We're focused on the two other options that we could have gone for. We haven't committed to the shot that we're going to play. So at the moment of execution, our focus is not external and narrow. Our focus is both external, internal. It's broad, it's narrow, it's all of those things at once. And it's that confusion, it's that lack of clarity that impacts performance in that moment. So I wanted to share that with you all. It's super simple, but incredibly powerful. If the next time you go out on the golf course, you can just ask yourself those 4 questions, mutually exclusively. Ask yourself those 4 questions as part of your pre-shot routine. You're going to be doing a much better job of making sure that your focus is on what's relevant in the present moment. And when we do those stuff and we get our focus on what's relevant in the present moment, we're much more likely to think resourceful thoughts. And when we think more resourceful thoughts, we have better emotions, more beneficial emotions. When we feel more confident, our state shifts, heart rate lowers, grip pressure releases, our tempo improves. And when those things happen, we access our best golf swing more consistently. And when you access your best golf swing, whatever that looks like to you, you hit better golf shots and shoot lower scores. But all of this stuff started with your focus. So we've got to start to practice this. We've got to start to train it. So that's what I ask for every single one of you today is when you go out onto the golf course, ask those questions. What is the situation? What are my options? What is the shot? And what is the target? And when you ask those questions, your brain will go to work answering them for you. But I want you to imagine, just the final piece on this, I want you to imagine that each question is kind of like in its own room. So let's imagine that you walk into a room, you open the door, you close the door behind you, and you ask the first question when you're in that room. What's the situation? And you answer the question in that room, you collect all the information, and then you walk out of that room. You close the door, and you move over to the next room. You open the door, you walk in, and you ask the next question. What are my options? And you can only ask that question, and you can only answer that question in its own room. So you can't drag the previous question into the new room. They're all exclusive. They're all mutually exclusive of one another. That's what's really important to make sure that you don't stack them on top of each other. Once you've collected all the information, you're aware of the hazard, you're aware of the wind, you're aware of the yardage, that job's done. You're now moving into what are my options. So you're making sure that they all happen separate of one another, but that they're building. That your decision that you make at stage 3 is based upon all the previous information, for sure. It needs to be. But at that moment, we don't want to also now be bringing back up past information that isn't relevant in the present moment. So I hope that was helpful. Super excited to bring you more and more value like this. I know some of you might have heard this in previous episodes, but we want to keep reinforcing some of the key frameworks that we teach here at Flowcode, and this is one of the most important. We're in a world where we're distracted all the time. We're being trained for distraction. Our phones are popping off with notifications all the time. Everything's happening. We want to make sure that we train our focus as much as we're being trained for distraction. So if we can train our focus with those 4 simple questions, I want to hear how you get on. Let us know. Implement the questions. Use them in your next round of golf and let us know how you get on. But thank you as always for listening. Thank you as always for joining, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.